ordinances to wit, and I don't think anybody's got a copy of it in front of them, but two additions. One is to require edging on lawn strips and sidewalks, curbs, gutters, etc., to prevent encroachment from adjacent grassed areas. And then the second is to require that the lawn strips between the sidewalk and the curb contain only grass, and to prohibit mulch, gravel, artificial turf, or other foreign substances. I think we've had some issues out, particularly on Everhard Road, which is the genesis for this request. Patrick, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Revolt. I was unable to be a part of the meeting last time when you spoke, but that isn't necessarily the genesis of it. In the last 12 months driving around the city, I see it everywhere where we're changing out the devil strip, if you want to call it, for asphalt, rocks, gravel, mulch, everything. And if you got, and I'm just bringing it up in the text of when we're trying to provide that gateway into the city, that you guys have, the look that you're going for on those various, whether it's Everhard or Easton or Apple Grove or whatever it is, that makes a demonstrable difference when it can be anything that anybody wants. I mean, are we going to put, whatever out there? I mean, it's just not uniform, and it makes a complete difference when you're coming in off of that. So we're not suggesting that, where it is, that people have to remove it. I guess people are grandfathered in, but certainly going forward, we would like it that, we're not, making the problem worse as it relates to removing the devil strip and changing it out into something else.
So, Pat, are you saying that those who have it can keep it?
Well,
I mean, if we're going to go to this, we want this to look right. We need to make some changes here, and we'll give them some sort of leeway or time, or even we work with them to move that out of there, because, I mean, if we think it's not presentable, it's not presentable. So let's get it switched. I mean, is that what we're proposing, or I mean?
Well, we're bringing it out for discussion. I think, my position, I would support what the council wants. I think that's clearly a better approach than just allowing it pell-mell, to the extent that, we can, somehow find a way to assist them. Maybe there's a vendor that could provide a discounted rate to those that wanted to do that, something to that effect. But
just by your knowledge, how many do you think I'm not trying to make, test you or anything, but what do you think, how many do we have in our town? Because we won't want to get ourselves into something that, is too great. So do we have a lot of this? Or?
We have a considerable amount. I mean, what is a lot to you?
Yeah.
Is it, 100? Probably.
Okay.
You're talking about 100 properties that need some attention?
Talking about perhaps as many as 100 properties that have changed the devil strip.
Right. Like, I mean, obviously, they're trying to make it beautiful in their own worldly way. And, what we're looking for is more consistency. Yeah. Like me, my big issue is like when the grass grows in the street or across the sidewalk, or you can't go down the sidewalk because there's all this growth. To me, that's really how my intention of the whole thing. Now, if they already spent money to put these devil strips in, or whatever you want to call them, with pretty rocks or whatever, I understand the hazard point, but did you say the city would be willing to take them out for them?
No, you didn't say that.
I was just double checking because...
I didn't say that.
No.
Okay, so what happens is they're going to be upset that they spent all their money to beautify it, and now you're gigging me on that. So I think that would be the only thing I would probably readjust with this plan. I think I would just say, look, our intentions are to have it look more uniform and neat and tidy, or whatever you want to say it. We would prefer not to have the stones because, people ride their bikes and they slip on a stone, they hurt themselves, or maybe someone with a walker gets stuck on a stone like a grocery store cart. So that would make more sense to me to approach it that way. than to dictate and say, take it out. So that's just my,
So you're saying leave what's there?
well, I'm just
and then
saying,
going forward-
Could we give them a time span to take it out,
I
like
would-
3 to 5 years?
I would just say that maybe, like, where I saw it a lot, and maybe Patrick noticed it, was on Everhard Road. You
I
know,
noticed that.
So there
You
was
can't
a
miss
lot,
that.
after the road, the place looked real sloppy because probably people stayed away from the construction area because it was dangerous. Well, now that that's done and we used a special polymer, so it's gonna be a great road for many years, I think it's important with the skinny sidewalks, like what Daryl cited when we talked about it, they weren't the normal size you see now. I just think that we need to educate our constituents that, look, you know, this is maybe an example of what we'd like to see, and over time, we'd like to see everything look that good, because this is the main entry point into the city. And I don't know if I would just see how it goes, and then if we have to re-evaluate the legislation to address that, then maybe we do that. That's just my thought, but again, you guys make the decision, 1 to 7.
So would there be a way on those main entrance roads, so whether it's Everhard or Portage or the main thoroughfares, that possibly the city would take care of those? And then the other ones, because I think, Mark, to your point, if we did the 3 to 5 years, then we have to manage all those people, and then if somebody moves, it's just, I think, becomes a paperwork issue. But then, so everybody else, if it's not on those main thoroughfares, it is what it is. But going forward, the legislation kicks in and you're not allowed to do that anymore. But for us as a city, it may be worth our while to remove those main thoroughfare double strips and make those areas at least look continuous or
I mean, as we go north and south, we're taking the sidewalks, eliminating the grass and making it concrete because it's less maintenance. So is that something feasible down the road? Maybe, maybe not. We can look into it, but I was just saying, I believe we'll open a can of worms with dealing with taking, you know, we don't like your rocks, or we don't like your mulch, or we don't like whatever. I understand why they're
But you're
doing
saying that right now, when you're denying anyone else to do it, you're saying right there that we don't like that, we don't want that to happen. So why would we let the other people continue to do that? The other people are just gonna say, well, Mrs. So-and-so has it, why can't I have it?
And you will have some of that, but it's like anything else. Like, I might keep my yard nice and tidy, but the neighbor may not, because it's not important to them. But it's important to the neighborhood, to, you know, to keep things nice. It helps, you know, it's beautiful, it's enticing, it helps the real estate values, it helps your property value.
That's kind of why we're doing
It
it.
helps you feel like a neighborhood that people want to live in. And I'm just saying, not from a real estate standpoint, I'm just saying as a common sense standpoint, you know, I try to set the example how I want my yard to look. That doesn't guarantee you're going to do it, but I'm just saying if enough of us do it and we set some practical guidelines and maybe even show some examples of what we're meaning, because believe it or not, a lot of people are busy and they don't want to be bothered. It's like out of sight, out of mind. But we know as it's a main corridor coming into the city, which we know what those streets are, I would pay attention to those first. And if we have to get a little more involved, then we do that. You know, but I think it's an education thing. And like I said, we have the water bill, we have the quarterly newsletter, you know, so we can start educating people and then setting examples as well.
It's too wishy-washy. It's
I don't-
either you're gonna
Yeah,
go
I don't see how you can say in
You're
the
gonna either
main,
go forward and.
as far as I'm concerned, my road's a main thoroughfare, you know,
Yeah.
race, so I don't see how you can say some roads and not the other. And I don't really think how
I'm
you can just
talking-
leave them
I'm talking
there.
about Maple, or East
Okay.
I think there's
Maple,
certain roads you could
and
pick.
Everhard Road, and I would say
Portage.
Cleveland Avenue, and I would say Portage, and I would say Apple Grove. I would say I would start there first, because see, what triggered this whole thing is, and I asked Pat about this, and Daryl, you know what I'm talking about. Everhard Road was horrible. I mean, am I right?
If you,
And,
Yeah.
and when you went down Everhard Road after we had that talk, what did you see?
Well, it was, I saw it was, to be honest, it was depressing.
Did you hear that?
But it,
Why
you know,
was
the
it
sidewalks
depressing?
were,
But you're not
42-inch
gonna pay for
sidewalks
it.
were reduced
They're
to
not gonna
12
force you to
inches
do
because of the overgrowth, and some curbs you couldn't see, and just because there were changes to the devil strip didn't eliminate the maintenance of them. They were still weeds growing up through them, regardless of the base that was put in there, so.
So I guess, you know,
Well, if
my
I could-
thinking
no.
is that the mayor wants to
You know,
talk. Go ahead.
one thing that at least we've noticed, I think when you see it on the main entryways, like Everhard or Portage, especially where there's like 4 lanes. Because when you think about it, you've got all that traffic, you know, 25, 30,000 cars, depending on which road it is, a day. And then when there's snow plowing, all that stone, and that's where I think you see it at the entryway at Portage,
It's very heavy along there. Coming up Everhard, you see it. I mean, I had walked down there, and Councilman Revolt is the one that called me and said, you got to take a look at it. And it was just nothing but along the sidewalk, just debris and stone. You know, it was in the spring, after all the snow plowing. And then Portage was another area. Washington Square, but there's not much of a, that's been pretty good. That hasn't been a problem, but there's a lot of traffic and entryway there. And then also, I mean, the ones that stand out in my mind where we've had the complaints is Portage and Everhard.
Yeah.
I agree.
Right?
They were a mess. And
Down by Dr. Thomas's office, I mean, you could just walk down there, and it could be because, you know, they're bringing debris from areas where roads that weren't paved, and there's a lot of, you know, gravel and stone, and so we just went out and we would clean it up. But I mean, even the sidewalk was, there's no way one person could.
I don't know, I guess all we can do is like try to figure out how we can refine it and make less regulation or more, you know, make it just, like I said, it's just common sense.
I think less regulation is why there's a problem that we have right now. I think it's always intended that the Devil Strip is just another name for the lawn strip, and the lawn strip predisposes it's to be maintained such as a lawn. And simply because we didn't go the extra mile and add that extra part to the legislation stating that your lawn strip should contain what's viewed as a lawn and not be filled with gravel or mulch or something along that line. Yeah. They felt, some residents had the opportunity, well, it's difficult to maintain perhaps, or it's easier if I put a liner down in gravel or something along those lines. But I think you run the risk of the unfairness of those stating, well, I live along one of these roads, that's the entryway, and now I have a higher standard than those of the others in the neighborhood, other neighborhoods, and that's unfair. And we're not asking anything more from those that live along those areas than we are than others. Is part of home ownership is to maintain your property. And I can imagine similar arguments from businesses that perhaps in our mind we hold those that are in the Main Street business district to a higher standard than perhaps Apple Grove.
Yeah, that's
and
a good point.
Other businesses would make, you know, that complaint that I'm not being treated fairly. And it's a constitutional argument, but I hope we don't go down that path with someone on a devil strip.
The grass strip, then.
Yeah. Well,
So,
let me
maintain
just
it like the yard.
to
grass
say
strip.
something that Tim was saying here, because this weekend somebody came up to me, a good friend of mine came up to me. They have children, and they're looking for a home for their children. You know, they live in a town close to ours here, and it was kind of interesting what they said to me. They said that our son, we told our son, why don't you look for a house in North Canton? Because they have a lot of nice starter homes, and they have regulations that make sure that people keep them nice. Because where they live, people park anywhere, people have whatever they want in their house. They put a tree house in the middle, in the front yard, things like that they don't allow. But that's, when they said it to me, I go, you know what? That's right. And that's why people want it, and one of the reasons why. So when you start saying you want to release certain regulations, be careful what you're asking for.
Well, I didn't mean release. I'm just saying I just need more clarity. Like, don't make it more cumbersome. Just make it clean and easy. And when he said grass strip, that hit home with me.
Yeah.
Instead of a devil strip or this strip or that strip, it's the grass strip, maintain it like your yard, and we'd like it to look uniform or something like that. That makes sense, Tim. That's all.
I don't have a copy of the codified ordinance in front of me, but 55301 prohibits homeowners from blowing debris into the street. All right? What we're really saying, we're asking for two things here. The first is, I guess this is thumbs up or thumbs down, do we want to require homeowners to maintain their sidewalks? I mean, you already can't blow it into the street. We don't want you to blow it into the sidewalk where it becomes part of the natural vegetation. So that's question A. Is that something we want to do? I'm just kind of looking at, nodding heads, because this is what the language is.
Does
All right?
maintain mean replacing the cement?
That's the second question. Okay, so the first question is, do we want to prevent the encroachment of the ground cover? And I think the answer is yes. So at a minimum, we want to add C to existing A and D. Then we have D. And D says lawn strips shall be maintained in the same manner as lawns. Is that something we want
That's
to
a
do?
yes.
You can't differentiate between one street or the other. It is, we're gonna create one standard for everybody,
Then we're
That
just gonna
makes
do it
sense to
going
me.
forward.
and we're gonna do it going forward.
I mean, that's basically what you're saying.
Well, then there needs to be a time where the other people have to
They have to
conform.
come into compliance.
A certain amount of, 3, 5 years?
You're never gonna be able to keep track of that.
Well,
And
the
how are
question
you
is,
gonna
why?
do
Well, why wouldn't you? Because the
got
nuisance
nuisance
person would still go
exactly.
around. Go ahead,
Yeah.
it's the same.
Yeah, I think it's either the grass or a brick or concrete that's supervised. Someone comes out and looks and says, yeah, you can do this. That's the only alternatives. No gravel, no kind of vegetation going up. There's trees that are planted in certain areas they shouldn't do. Let's face it, on some of our nicer tree canopy streets, you know, so I think we need to take control of this.
Well, to Doug's point, it's a question that I have, is if we're going to require grass, do we want to create an exception for brick only, which is what we have on Main Street? Or do we want to allow people to plant flowers? And there's actually a reason why people do plant flowers, is because there's so much road salt out there that makes grass difficult.
Right.
So they can come in and they can throw some soil down, and, I've got somebody who puts in.
Right.
But it just looks kind of trashy.
I don't know, that's
Well,
what's
the
so
flowers,
hard.
some of the flowers look pretty good.
I've heard that before, but 90% of people grow grass there.
Okay.
So it's not,
No, we call them weeds.
Continuity.
Okay, so it is our call. Do we want to add D that says it's going to be grass? And if it is, do we want to make it, if you've got lava stone right now, we're telling you that you can no longer have lava stone.
Or if they have brick, we're telling them they have to take out.
I think the
brick.
brick
Nobody's got
looks,
brick.
the brick looked
Okay.
nice on Portage.
But you've got brick out here, though, which
Right.
is going to be a problem. So you,
Well, Wector's house has.
I thought that
But
was,
some of the, out of the 100 homes, somebody has brick, right? I'm not just talking
Vector and
Portage.
Portage does.
Yes.
What is the
Yeah.
reason he did that? The devil strip over on Portage is half or less.
and you're not gonna grow grass there because of the salt.
On Main Street, we've eliminated that through the streetscape process. There is no devil strip, edge strip. We have taken that out as the city from one end of the town to the other on Main Street. So yes, there is brick there. That's not a problem for those businesses that are there. We did that. We changed that.
Which is the thing.
right, I think what he's saying is we have brick. Why wouldn't we allow other people to have brick? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I'm trying to pay attention to what our language says, is that lawn strips shall be maintained in the same manner as lawns. And we have businesses on South Main Street particularly that have lawns. So do you want to create an exception for brick?
Well, would it go
And
That
one,
would be the only exception.
with the Main Street?
Well,
One
it's
But
the
with
same
that,
reason.
There's stamped concrete, and there's like other nice factors, like what,
I mean, we have brick now, right? And we know our experience on Main Street with it is that when it's not properly installed,
That's correct.
right?
it's
And it's
unmanageable.
bricks.
And we're going to allow who to install that? And how is it going to be installed? And are we just creating more uneven walking surfaces by letting it be
well,
installed someplace else?
and keep in mind that you do have some people that are, their top priority is their lawn. And I can think of a couple of homes where they've got a great lawn and their devil strip is not grass. They've placed brick, or they've placed flowers.
I know, it's a
Or,
tough
and
one.
so the thing is that, you just have to, I'm just saying, we don't want, somebody that has a beautiful lawn and they take care of it and they're on top of it and it's like, oh, gotta have grass for it. Tear out the bricks.
Well, there needs to be some time to
Maybe it's today forward.
do away with it.
I mean, and really what we're looking for is we want the homes to be presentable. right? I mean, that's what the goal is. We want the homes to be presentable. It's not like we necessarily want to, so it becomes a challenge to, define what is presentable. But maybe before we start defining what that is, just take a look at what you have now along some of those places.
Let's,
Like loose impediments, vegetation, I mean, you can word things, so there's leeway.
I mean,
okay,
it's a slippery slope,
let's do this then. Let's prepare this legislation. We will require the maintenance item C, which was in the document, and we can always amend it, the language for D on the lawn strips if you want grass or something else, but we can think about it over the next 2 weeks. We'll start the process.
yeah.
Is that fair? Is that
Yeah,
fair?
this is good discussion.
And we can add that amendment D. If you will drive around and give some thought, I would also say that if we're going to go to grass, give some thought to the practical consideration of how we bring those folks into compliance. I know we've got some guy down who's got a couple tons of lava stone, I'm sure. So what are we going to do about it? Are we going to make him haul it off? Are we going to do it for him, or what are we going to do? So let's think about how we solve it.
I mean, I use river rock in all my beds now, and I love it.
Well, I was thinking we might put all that lava stone in your driveway.
I did have it in my driveway, but I pulled it out.
All right, so let's, if I can, okay, so we'll go with Mr. Fox.
Yes,
we'll go
sir.
with C, and we'll put it on for first reading with the idea that we may amend it and add D. And let's think about how we want to do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We also discussed some no parking, amending the chapter 351 of our truck zoning. We've subsequently come up with an idea. I'd like to push this aside. We're going to have the engineering department look at a traffic study for the area before we before we adopt legislation regarding this truck parking. That might include the creation of a one-way street. And again, what we're trying to find is a better balance between the needs of the company and its deliveries and a couple of the neighbors. So before we just simply post something, I think the spirit of this is we have a very important commercial citizen, and we should acknowledge that. So before we create a headache for that resident, Rob has graciously agreed to take a look at some other traffic options. So we'll bring this back at another time if that's agreeable.
Sounds good.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next up, Finance and Property, Chairwoman Warren.
Okay. So we talked about this a lot last week, the professional services agreement between the City of Canton, the City of North Canton, and Safe Built. And we're doing this because we need some help with our building department. And so I would like to thank Pat and Laura and Tim and the mayor and Rob and kind of everybody who was involved in kind of seeing the issues that we had and the concerns and really finding a company kind of thinking outside the box and working with our community to say, hey, this is why we need this, and getting their buy-in with people who are our direct vendors and work with our constituents and different people on our behalf, and looking at all the things that we need. So we did talk about it a lot, and the agreement is in front of you, and it talks about all the services that the company will provide. Well, you can see them on the back, but it says a list of services from plan review, building, electrical, plumbing services, code enforcement as requested, rental housing, which I know, Doug, you were really excited about, and permit technician services, building official services, et cetera. So we feel like we have a really good plan in place, and I know that we want to move this forward. Pat, is there anything that you want to talk about even more regarding this? Laura, Tim, questions?
I would like to add that in conducting the research on this, and I've been looking into this for more than a year, and bringing it to the present time, what really makes this unique, as far as professional service agreement goes, is the ability for us to customize in a way that I don't think really anybody else can. So the key points to me were, the ability to operate in our domain, in this room, in this building, is where this goes down. So we know what's happening, and we're able to maintain the ability to interact with that and make sure that the services are delivered in the manner that are being asked for. Introduction of third-party software that we can utilize even if we were to separate from them down the road. This would be something that we could continue. That's not always the case with someone that you hook up. You're using their software. They take it with them when they go. They're answerable to the administration, so it's not that there is, some autonomy with things that are not happening in this building. They're happening here, and they report what the problems and concerns that are ongoing. We're able to expand services in a way that this council has been looking for in a couple areas regarding exterior code enforcement and rental registration. They're unique in that they're able to bring that and make that all part of the third-party software. Guaranteed inspection times, not everybody can offer that. That's a biggie for us. Providing an upgrade on automation to the forms that we use. Hasn't been done, being able to do it online, electronic plan submissions. These are all things that are brought to the table in this area, in addition to community engagement, teaching our residents what they need to do if they need to put on a deck, for instance. We can host seminars that they can put on for our residents. So in that respect, I think it is what makes it a pretty unique situation to be able to hit all of those particular items just as we need them.
I think one of the other key criteria is that a chief building officer is assigned to the city of North Canton. Right now is Martin Van Gundy, and Marty is working in our building as the chief building officer, and directing the permits in the building department. When Marty was out for training a little over a week ago, instead of, as with a city employee, if someone is on vacation or they're out sick, there's no one there to be in their stead. Maybe their assistant helps pick up the slack. However, here with the Safe Built agreement, they assigned another person. So they had someone in here with the same qualifications as Mr. Van Gundy, and was able to offer insight to our zoning board of appeals meeting that had the person been on vacation, they simply wouldn't have been here. Some of the unique things that are available that we weren't able to find in other places is that bit of automation to the process that they bring in their proprietary product, where the permit, it's an electronic document, and the inspector can be out in the field, inspect, say, a plumbing inspection, and input that into a tablet and be able to press a button and send that confirmation that the permit the inspection has been completed, and the vendor may proceed. It's just simply with a push of a button versus the person coming back, either mailing or scanning and emailing the document, or asking them to come in and pick that document up. It also covers not just the inspectors, but it covers the permits office. So the permits clerks that we'll have will be safe-built clerks. So they undergo a heightened degree of training, so that it's not someone that perhaps was an administrative assistant or that type of position and is moved into this spot and learn as they go along. These folks are trained as permit clerks, understand the terms of art that are used, and I think it's going to help speed up the process that we have. There are built-in guarantees that we're not going to find anywhere else. If a permit request is called in before 4 p.m., it's guaranteed that it'll be inspected by the end of business the next day. That's incredible. The plans both for commercial and residential are guaranteed to be done in half of what the typical time. Normally, it's expected that it's going to be 30 days. We have a 15-day window for those types of plans. So we believe that this is going to be as best as possible a seamless transition. And although we haven't placed it on here for emergency legislation, I do think it's something that you may want to contemplate, because full 3 readings on this, the kind of brief window that we have, I think it runs through the end of
I was going to suggest it, Tim.
November.
Tim, I was going to suggest it.
Okay, because I think that's
Make an amendment.
important, and
We want to get it through
we're
this.
permitted to do this by stating the rationale and the basis for this, because outside of that, our building department that maintains the housing and the building stock for the city, essentially comes to a standstill. Residents that aren't aware of this, that are expecting inspectors to come out where jobs cannot proceed without this inspection, for electrical before they seal up a wall, or a plumbing inspection before they do the same thing. All of those are placed on hold, and thousands of dollars are sitting at bay, while residents and developers are waiting for our legislative process. I think this kind of fits the bill perfectly for that intent.
Thank you.
So we are going to put an emergency clause on?
Yes, if we could do that, that would be great, and then we'll move it to the agenda for next week for first reading. But thank you, everyone, for your time. I mean, I think this is something very different and unique we're doing, and a trial, so if it doesn't, we will do other things, but I think so far we're really pleased with what we see.
I appreciate everybody's efforts. We all want the same things. We want better-looking neighborhoods, code compliance. We've struggled with that. We know. Mayor, we've talked about it. I think this is an opportunity to see this done professionally and effectively and efficiently, and I'm very excited about it. It's not like we want to penalize people who own rental units or own their homes. We do expect a certain standard here, and that's all we're looking for. It should be welcomed in our community with investors and from landowners, private owners, whoever. We owe it to our community to keep our standards, the integrity of our neighborhood sound and sufficient for the future years, and this is going to do this. Very happy about it. So thanks for your hard work. Appreciate it.
There's one thing too, when you look at any one of our departments, you see all these departments going through this transition, because there's really 2 areas when we're providing the service. There's the people and there's the process. And we've always had very good people in the positions, and if they're not a good fit, it becomes pretty evident over a short period of time. So we always try to hire the best people. But one of the limitations that we've had is that we've hired very good people, just in any department, but then the process where we've been lacking, and I think it's common in a lot of government systems, is it depends on your technological advancement. I mean, it's almost like when you're putting together a graduation party. When I look at my son putting his graduation party together, getting all the names and addresses. Well, once you do it once and you download all the addresses, it's real easy to get it the second and third time. You go to the computer, you hit the button one time, and you got all the addresses. And that's what we face here, trying to take all the old documents, moving forward and electronically submitting the information, collecting it, then data retrieval, and this company has that all in place. And so now it's just a matter of just using their system, and in this case, their players or their people, but this will be sustainable in the future because it'll just take us so much further ahead, you know, of all the other, well, certainly what we had, right? I mean, it's because we're talking about using the iPads, and rather than somebody coming in and let's say a developer asking me, or asking the department, you know, when can I have the plan reviewed? Now there's a timeline, and it can be submitted electronically, right? Reviewed electronically, responded to electronically. Almost like the difference when you go into the bank. Normally you have to go into the bank. Now you could do it on your cell phone. You can move money on your cell phone, and we just come to expect it. But we've been a little bit in the permits department. We've just been behind. But now we're going to be state of the art.
I think there's, to be fair, there are residents that greatly exceed our standard. We have the standard for lawns at no more than 8 inches, and commercial properties no more than 10 inches before they mow their lawn. And we have residents that take great pride in their lawns and their plantings, and some of those individuals are very robust critics of North Canton government. And I think that perhaps they look at it as, well, before I come and criticize, I'm going to make sure that I have my own house in order so that you don't come and criticize. And I'll acknowledge that Mr. Osborne's home, Larry Tripp's home, each of those are frequent critics of city government, but boy howdy, they take care of their homes. You can't find a housing violation, and often there's so much legislation that if you look hard enough, you can almost always find something. But I think with each of them, they take great pride in maintaining their homes. Nearly every day I drive by Larry Tripp's house and I'll see him either trimming a tree, edging, mowing. I saw him raking and mowing his leaves just this afternoon. And I think it's just unfair to those that take that extra effort and know what our standards are and then see that they're not being maintained. It's just a fundamental unfairness to them.
So one quick thing. So what you're saying about all the residents, I agree with. The thing that I see and hear about an awful lot, and this is what I was talking to Martin about, our CBO, is that the perception of the past, since it was a little unorganized, we had a lot of bumps and bruises with subcontractors, builders, the BIA, and all those affiliates. And they always worry about the speed, because time is money in the construction field, the cost of registering or to make sure we're in line with the cost, and the third thing is like systemization, so that creates the speed and efficiency. And so I had a talk with Martin, and he said that he wants to join the BIA. He wants to communicate with them because we want to sort of bridge that gap of those issues that we had for so many years. And I believe this is a great opportunity for us finally to kind of put everything together, because that's really where we're dropping the ball, I think, with our operations. Now that Patrick's been studying this for about a year, and from what I can see, this really looks like a good plan of action. So I'm really excited, and welcome aboard, Martin. We're excited to have you.
And I would be remiss if I didn't point out Melanie Rolls. Her house is nearly within sight from our council chambers, and again takes great pride in maintaining her home. She's at nearly every council meeting. So again, it's unfair that others aren't maintaining, and yet they hold themselves to a higher standard, and so they deserve that.
I think there's something else that's going on here. It's occurred over the last year, and that is sort of fundamental willingness to think out of the box to find greater economies in the way the municipality operates. we pride ourselves on our traditions, but when you think about it, over the last year, we discontinued the mayor's court, which was costing us large sums of taxpayer money. And I think we've achieved a savings here as well, have we not, by taking this approach? So I think it's an example of the municipality's desire to be good stewards of public money. I mean, those words get thrown around a lot, but this is a case where we've downsized, got a little leaner, and I don't know what the aggregate savings of those two actions would be, but I'm going to guess they're in the tens of thousands of dollars. Am I correct, ma'am?
It's very similar to the way that we've, used RETA to collect our income tax. We use Kimball to collect our trash. Sometimes larger organizations have economies of scale that we just can't manage. And what we tried to do with the building department in 2018 was staff it up. We thought that would really help improve service and performance. And we basically doubled the size of the department and really saw not a good result. So with Safe Build, we will retain some of the revenue, but they take all of the liability, basically. They take the cost of the employees, the technology, the cars, the cell phones, all of those things. So overall, we will, our bottom line.
And I think the other thing is I would say, is you've reminded us that sometimes when you start along a path, it takes a great deal of courage to say it's not working and that we're going to stop and we're going to move in another direction. And I think that makes this particular instance particularly good for our taxpayers.
Well, I think the other thing the mayor alluded to is when we look at rental registrations, they already have it in place. It's something we really haven't done. We haven't enforced. Certificates of occupancy haven't been gone over. They haven't been updated. They're ready to go. Their system's in place. They're successful with it. So it's just a matter of just putting it in place for us here. That's a calming effect. I'm sure the law director as well as the administration, everybody else here, they have a proven system that works.
Correct.
So,
You're right.
They're in
That's exactly right.
500 municipalities nationwide.
exactly.
Let's got it on the agenda, an emergency.
Need a motion to adjourn?
I do.
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That's a good.
See you next week.